3 album reviews in a week. What? But I just had to do it, you know? I just gotta do it, you know? You're watching the Joe Sonus review of Death of a Bachelor by Panic! At the Disco. Panic! At the Disco is a band hailing from my hometown of Las Vegas, a squad. And they kind of blew up back in 2005 with their debut, A Fever You Can't Sweat Out, which showcased a very raw, simplistic pop-punk style that most fans fell head over heels for, including me. That was a fantastic album. The band was formed by Brendan Urie, Ryan Ross, Brent Wilson, and Spencer Smith, but they've had a hard time holding on to their members as they've dabbled in different genres over the years. Like with their second album, Pretty Odd, which saw a departure from their debut sound, as well as from Ryan Ross and John Walker, who'd replaced Brent on bass, leaving just 2 in the band. Nevertheless, that record was really well received with its acoustic, folky, and overall pretty sound, featuring such favorites as 9 in the Afternoon and That Green Gentleman. Their third installment, Vices and Virtues, however, wasn't as well received, mainly because the production was more pristine and less gritty. It was a throwback to their old style, but it lacked the over-the-topness of A Fever You Can't Sweat Out. Then in 2013, they released my personal favorite Panic record, the very raw, hard-hitting, electronically tinged Too Weird to Live, Too Rare to Die, which is my favorite because it was the only Panic record, besides this one, that I listened to as soon as it came out. It was my first real exposure to the band, and having grown up in Las Vegas, I struggled with a lot of the things that album expressed, as Las Vegas is a pretty big theme. It's featured a synth-flavored version of the grittiness that we all love so much about A Fever You Can't Sweat Out. But unfortunately, after that album was released, Spencer Smith, having struggled with an alcohol addiction, had to leave the band, leaving Brendan Urie as the sole remaining original member. So obviously, Urie's under a lot of pressure to follow up such a successful album, but did he deliver as he struck out on his own? Well, since there was so much hype surrounding this release, I was cautiously optimistic when going into this thing. I wasn't super crazy about any of the singles that had been released beforehand. Like Emperor's New Clothes, that song was not bad at all, but the tracks Victorious and Hallelujah sounded like they were ready for top 40 radio. With Hallelujah pandering to the gospel choir theme popularized by the likes of Andy Grammer and David Guetta, and Victorious featuring very trendy children's choir vocals. I was curious to see, however, what tricks he had up his sleeve, what Panic had to bring to the table this time around. Sadly, no. Overall, this album is very hit and miss and unfocused and very meh. Urie has said that this album is meant to be Queen mixed with Sinatra, but the problem with that is that those influences have such vastly different styles that this album is too all over the place. My sister decided to play her trumpet as soon as I was filming. Urie actually decides to dabble in jazz-type music that plays tribute to the 50s, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, like with the title track on this album, which at first I thought was no good. I just thought it was a bad Frank Sinatra impression. But dang it, the more I listened to it, the more it grew on me, and the more charming it got. Brendan's vocals shine through as the main centerpiece of this song, and I can appreciate the rhyme scheme that is the chorus. It's something that I thought I wouldn't like, but it turned out not to be so bad. On the other hand, we have the track Crazy Equals Genius, which does not click with me. It just sounds so forced. Trying to mimic a sort of cool, jazzy 50s nightclub scene, and it just does not work. Then we have the track Don't Threaten Me With a Good Time, which is easily my least favorite song on the record. The sort of spaghetti western saloon-inspired guitar hook that appears on the intro and throughout this song just does not appeal to me at all. It's actually a sample from the old B-52 song Rock Lobster, which calls to mind the track Uma Thurman by Fall Out Boy, which similarly reuses an old guitar hook. But while that track succeeded, this one just doesn't. The extremely distracting and rambunctious chorus and lyrics about hangovers, drugs, and alcohol and partying just don't work for me either. Not that I don't usually like things like that, but it just doesn't work here. They're not fun or funny or clever, just Just no. Now, with the exception of Emperor's New Clothes, which is very gritty and over the top and pretty well done, the more radio-ready songs on this record tend to be the better ones. Like I said, I was pretty meh about Hallelujah and Victorious the first time I listened to them, but they've definitely grown on me with time. And the chord progression and vocals on the track LA Devotee is just begging to be played on Top 40 radio, and yet it's irresistible. Hands down, my favorite song on here. It's catchy, it's infectious, and it's about how he accepts this girl the way she is, with her flaws and her unique personality. However, the album finishes off just as weak as the rest of the album is overall. We've got tracks like Golden Days and The Good, the Bad, and the Dirty, which are these nostalgic anthems. I suppose they're good enough, but along with the more subdued tracks like Impossible Year and House of Memories, these are just kind of filler songs. A House of Memories with this painfully obvious meaning about how he doesn't want her to forget him, but the instrumental sounds like it should be a deep song. I don't know, just meh. So yeah, I think you get the idea. This album is just very messy and all over the place, and it doesn't feel like a consistent album. Sure, there are some songs that I could see myself going back to, but not the album as a whole. It's like it can't decide what it is. It can't decide which new sound it wants to experiment with. I know Panic at the Disco is a very diverse walk, but they've usually within the album have been pretty consistent, but not with this one. Overall, not satisfied with this album. I'll give Death of a Bachelor by Panic at the Disco a 62%, my favorite song being LA Devotee, and my least favorite song being Don't Threaten Me with a Good Time. I'll see you next time. I wouldn't change ya, no, I would never try to make you leave, no.